Question number 1 stands in the name of the Leader of the Opposition, David Shearer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. Does he believe that the Hon John Banks has behaved in a manner that upholds and is seen to uphold the highest ethical standards as required by the Cabinet Manual?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, yes.
David Shearer.
Does he find it acceptable for a minister to act unethically as long as they comply with the law?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, for a start off, the member is making an assumption, or an assertion, should I say, and secondly, would point out to the member that the issue of ethical standards apply to the minister when they are holding their warrant.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, does he believe John Banks acted ethically and gave an honest answer when he claimed that he hardly knew Kim.com in light of reports that he flew in .com's helicopter to his mansion for a 2.5-hour meeting and dinner, attended .com's birthday party and proposed a toast in his honour, attended a fireworks display with Mr. .com?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, I have no ministerial responsibility for that.
Does he believe?
Is this point of order?
Mr. Speaker, this was...
Point of order, David Shearer.
Mr. Banks gave this assertion when he was in his position as a minister and as a statement.
Order. I hear the point the honourable member is making. It is question asked whether a statement made by a certain minister while he was a minister in relation to matters that occurred perhaps before he was a minister upheld what it was, ethical standards. Forgive me, I can't recollect exactly the last part of the question. And I believe there is ministerial responsibility for a statement made by the minister while he was a minister. And I think to that extent the question should be answered more than that, because the Prime Minister does have responsibility for the ethical standards or otherwise of statements made by ministers while they are ministers. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think the Minister would have answered it as honestly as he could, subject to his memory of things that happened 2 years ago, but I have no capacity nor knowledge of being able to understand the veracity of that argument, because I have no ministerial responsibility for it.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does he believe John Banks when he says he can't remember asking Kim.com for the donation to be split into two $25,000 cheques to disguise their origins?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I have no reason to doubt it.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Given the questions around the donations from .com and Sky City, has he or his office sought assurances about the legitimacy of the 42 other anonymous donations totalling $648,000 given to Mr. Banks?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, what my office has sought is an assurance that the Minister acted in compliance with the Local Electoral Act. He's given that assurance categorically, and I will not be sacking a minister for complying with the law.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Did he or his office ask John Banks if he lied to journalists late last week in relation to the level of his involvement with Kim.com?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, no.
Why not?
The Leader of the Opposition.
Did he or his office ask John Banks what contact Kim.com has had with him or his office since he became a minister, and if so, what was his response?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, no. My office sought an assurance that to the basic allegation that Mr. Banks had broken the law, that he in fact had assured us he hadn't broken the law. If the member wants us to start sacking people for complying with the law, that's going to be a very interesting test.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Doesn't he think it's about time he sat and had another cup of tea with John Banks to discuss how he promised to have higher ethical standards under his government?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, no. But I will recall for the House that when I went off to the police because I believe I was illegally taped, the first thing I got from the Labor Party was don't waste the police time, and the first thing Trevor Mallard's done is run off to the police. Mind you, he knows the police quite well, Trevor Mallard.
Order. Question number 2, Barbara Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister.